History isn't what happened, it's what people said happened. And sometimes they lied through their powdered wigs. From kings rewriting their defeats into heroic victories, to conquerors claiming they discovered places that already had thriving civilizations. The past is full of beautifully packaged nonsense. History has always had a flair for drama. Every empire needed a legend, every ruler wanted a myth, and every civilization needed a story that made them look just a little bit better than they were. Some lies were born out of pride, some were built out of fear, and others were crafted so perfectly we still repeat them today, without realizing they were propaganda all along. These myths shaped nations, rewrote religions, and convinced billions of people that the fiction was the fact. So today, we're setting the record straight. We're counting down the 10 biggest lies in history, the myths that fooled empires, started wars, and turned manipulation into memory. So if you're ready to ruin a few textbook memories and discover how deep the rabbit hole of history really goes, let's dive in. Number 10, the Trojan horse, the original ancient scam. For centuries, people believed the Greeks won the Trojan War with a giant wooden horse, a gift so magnificent the Trojans couldn't resist pulling it inside their walls. After 10 brutal years of siege, endless battles, countless deaths, the Greeks appeared to give up. They set sail, leaving behind nothing but a massive wooden horse standing silently on the shore. The Trojans, thinking the war was finally over, saw it as a divine offering, a gift to the goddess Athena, a symbol of victory, a trophy to mark the end of a decade-long nightmare. They celebrated deep into the night. Wine flowed, music played. The war was over, or so they thought. But inside the wooden beast, Greek soldiers waited, silent, hidden in the belly of their gift. When the city slept, they slipped out, opened the gates, and signaled the fleet that had never truly left. By sunrise, Troy was burning. The city that had defied Greece for 10 years fell in one night, not to an army, but to deception. Here's the twist. There's no proof any of it actually happened. The entire story of the Trojan horse comes from Homer's Odyssey and Virgil's Aeneid, epic poems written centuries after the supposed war. No surviving record, no eyewitness, no archaeological trace of a horse the size of a building. So what was it? Most historians believe the horse wasn't literal, but a metaphor. Maybe it symbolized a siege tower, a massive wooden weapon used to breach walls. Or perhaps horse referred to Poseidon, god of earthquakes and horses, meaning the Greeks destroyed Troy with nature's fury, not trickery. Whatever the truth was, the myth became more powerful than reality itself. The story of the Trojan horse survived thousands of years. A warning, a metaphor, a masterpiece of deception. And today it still lives on, in movies, in literature, even in computer viruses. All from a story that probably never happened. Still, it remains the most famous scam in ancient history. The original "Trust Me, Bro." It's a gift. Number 9, Napoleon was short, the propaganda that stuck. Napoleon Bonaparte, the so-called short-tempered little emperor. Literally, for centuries we've been told he was tiny, a pocket-sized dictator with a serious height complex. But here's the twist. Napoleon wasn't short at all. In fact, he was average height for his time, around 5 feet 6 inches or 5 feet 7 inches. That's the same height as the typical Frenchman in the early 1800s. So where did the legend of Napoleon the Tiny Tyrant come from? Simple. British propaganda. The British, locked in a bitter war with France, knew that mocking your enemy could be as powerful as any cannon. They couldn't defeat him easily on the battlefield, so they took aim at his image. They painted him as small, ridiculous, and unstable. The angry little man trying to conquer the world. A joke fit for every tavern and newspaper headline. And it worked. By the time Napoleon's image spread across Europe, he was less a military genius and more a caricature. a walking punchline with a big hat and a small ego. But historically, the height confusion might also come from different measurement systems. French inches were longer than English ones, so Napoleon's 5 feet 2 inches in French measurements was actually closer to 5 feet 6 in English. Add that mix-up to a century of British ridicule, and voila. The myth of the miniature emperor was born, and that's how a world-conquering general who commanded millions and reshaped Europe got reduced to the world's most famous short joke. Turns out the only thing short about Napoleon was the truth. Number 8, Vikings wore horned helmets. The costume designers lie. When you imagine a Viking, you probably see it instantly. A towering warrior with wild hair, fur on his shoulders, and a massive helmet with 2 horns sticking out like antennas for rage. It's the image we've seen in movies, video games, even school plays. The ultimate symbol of barbarian power. Only one small issue. It's completely fake. That's right. No Viking ever wore horned helmets into battle. Not one. Archaeologists have excavated thousands of Viking artifacts, weapons, armor, burial items, and not a single battle helmet with horns has ever been found. So where did this myth come from? Well, not from the Vikings, but from 19th century costume designers. In the 1870s, composer Richard Wagner premiered his epic opera cycle, Der Ring des Nibelungen, a saga inspired by Norse mythology. The costume designer, August Horn, yes, fitting name, decided to make the warriors look more dramatic on stage, so he gave them horns. The audience loved it. The image stuck. And from that point on, the horned Viking became pop culture canon. The real Vikings? They were far too practical for that nonsense. A pair of horns would have been the worst design choice in battle history. Can you imagine trying to fight while your helmet gets tangled in everything from ropes to shields? Not exactly intimidating. What's more, the actual Viking aesthetic was more disciplined and strategic than savage. They were master shipbuilders, traders, and explorers, traveling as far as North America centuries before Columbus. But because of a 19th century opera costume, they've spent the last 150 years being remembered as horn-wearing barbarians. So next time you see a Viking with horns, remember, that's not history, that's Hollywood, with a helmet. Turns out the only thing mythical about Viking helmets were the horns. Number 7, people in the Middle Ages believed the Earth was flat, the greatest geography misunderstanding. You've heard the story 1,000 times. In the dark Middle Ages, people thought the Earth was flat. Sail too far, they said, and you'd fall off the edge into the great cosmic abyss. It's one of history's favorite myths. The brave genius Columbus defying ignorant medieval peasants who thought his ship would fall off the planet. Only one small problem. No one in the Middle Ages actually believed that. That's right. For over 2,000 years, educated people already knew the Earth was round. Even the ancient Greeks figured it out by watching how ships disappeared hull first over the horizon. In fact, as early as the 3rd century BCE, Eratosthenes measured the Earth's circumference, and he was only off by a few hundred miles. So where did this flat Earth story come from? Blame the 19th century. Writers in the 1800s, like Washington Irving, the guy who wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, decided to spice up Columbus's story. He claimed that Columbus heroically fought against a world of flat Earth believers. It made for a great narrative, a lone visionary defying superstition. The truth? The real debate back then wasn't about the shape of the Earth. It was about the size of it. Scholars knew it was round. They just thought it was too big to cross the ocean without running out of supplies. Spoiler, they were kinda right. But that 19th century storytelling twist stuck, and soon every classroom, cartoon, and children's book started teaching it as fact. Ironically, the myth that medieval people thought the world was flat became one of the most believed modern myths itself. So next time someone says people used to think the Earth was flat, you can tell them, no, that lie didn't come from the Middle Ages. It came from modern writers who needed a better plot. Turns out the only thing flat was the story. Number 6. Marie Antoinette Said, "Let them eat cake," the royal scapegoat. It's one of history's most famous quotes. Let them eat cake. 4 words that supposedly summed up everything wrong with the French monarchy. Marie Antoinette, the glittering queen of Versailles, so out of touch that when told her people were starving, she basically said, "No bread? Just switch to dessert." It's the ultimate symbol of royal arrogance. The rich literally telling the poor to stop being poor. Only one tiny issue. She never said it. That line appears nowhere in any record from her lifetime. No letters, no diaries, no eyewitness accounts. 0. So where did it come from? Turns out the phrase, "let them eat cake," or more accurately, "qu'ils mangent de la brioche," was already floating around decades before Marie Antoinette was even queen. It first appears in Jean-Jacques Rousseau's writings from the 1760s, when Marie Antoinette was just a child in Austria. He attributes the quote to some unnamed princess, not to her specifically. But by the time the French Revolution erupted, the starving masses needed someone to blame. And who better than the foreign queen with a heavy accent in a palace full of diamonds? Revolutionary propagandists took Rousseau's line, stuck it on Marie Antoinette's face, and boom, instant villain. It was perfect political theater. A simple, cruel soundbite that turned one woman into the symbol of an entire regime's success. And it worked. Even today, when we think of Marie Antoinette, we don't remember her as a teenager forced into a foreign court, or a queen trying, and failing, to fix an already broken system. We remember her as the queen who told starving peasants to eat dessert. The truth is, she didn't need to say it. The people needed her to have said it, because revolutions run on stories, not facts. So next time you hear, "let them eat cake," remember, the only thing she served was a lie baked by history. Number 5, Columbus discovered America, the lie that launched a holiday. We've all heard the line since grade school. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, the fearless explorer who discovered America, the man who brought civilization to a new world. Sounds heroic, right? Except, it's a massive lie. Columbus didn't discover America, because millions of people were already living there. Powerful civilizations like the Aztecs, Mayans, and the Inca had cities, agriculture, astronomy, and written languages long before he ever set sail. When Columbus landed in 1492, he didn't even step foot in what we now call the United States. He reached the Bahamas, then parts of Cuba and Hispaniola. He also thought he'd reached Asia. He called the people he met Indios, a mistake that stuck for centuries. And those friendly first encounters, they didn't stay friendly for long. Columbus's arrival marked the beginning of European colonization, which brought disease, slavery, and genocide to indigenous populations. So why do we keep calling it discovery? Because history was written by the victors. Columbus's voyages were glorified by European powers who needed a hero to justify their conquests. By the time the 19th century rolled around, America, the United States, needed its own founding legend. And Columbus was the perfect candidate. Italian roots, Christian faith, European adventure. They turned him into a national icon. They gave him a federal holiday, statues, parades, and conveniently ignored the parts that didn't fit the story. In reality, the first Europeans to reach the Americas were Norse Vikings, led by Leif Erikson, around the year 1000 CE, almost 500 years before Columbus. But they didn't claim to discover anything either, because to them, it was just another land with people already living there. So when textbooks say Columbus discovered America, what they really mean is he arrived, got lost, and started centuries of colonization. And somehow that turned into a holiday. Turns out the only thing Columbus discovered was how to get lost and still get credit for it. Number 4, the Salem witch trials were about magic. The mass panic nobody spelled correctly. When you hear Salem witch trials, you probably picture midnight rituals, broomsticks, and women cackling over cauldrons. It's one of the most infamous events in American history, a full-blown witch hunt that ended with 20 innocent people dead. And the way we tell it today, it sounds like it was all about witchcraft. The Puritans genuinely believed the devil had set up shop in Massachusetts. But here's the truth. It had almost nothing to do with magic. The witch trials weren't a war on sorcery. They were at war with each other. Behind the hysteria were years of local feuds, property disputes, and church politics. Salem was a small town tearing itself apart, and witchcraft became the easiest excuse for revenge. Many of the afflicted girls were teenagers who lived under strict religious control and endless boredom. Experts now believe their fits and visions were likely caused by psychological stress, or even ergot poisoning, a fungus found in rye bread that can cause hallucinations. And the evidence, things like, "She made my cow sick," "A shadow pinched me," or "She looked at me funny during prayer." No broomsticks, no potions, just fear, gossip, and mob mentality, a perfect recipe for mass hysteria. By the end, 20 people were executed, mostly women, and more than 200 others were accused, all for crimes no one could prove, and magic that never existed. But here's the haunting part. Salem wasn't just a dark moment in history, it became a symbol, a warning of how quickly logic collapses when fear takes over. In the end, the Salem witch trials weren't about witches at all. They were about what happens when truth goes up in smoke. Number 3, Nero fiddled while Rome burned. The fire, the blame, and the PR disaster. It's one of the most famous images in ancient history. Rome in flames, and Emperor Nero standing above it, playing his fiddle as the city burns. It's the perfect symbol of madness, ego, and royal indifference. The emperor who watched his empire burn and played music to the screams. Only one small problem: it never happened. Let's start with the instrument. Nero couldn't have fiddled because the fiddle didn't even exist yet. The violin was invented about 1,500 years later. So what did Nero actually do during the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD? Well, surprisingly, he helped. According to most ancient accounts, even those written by his enemies, Nero opened his own palaces to shelter refugees, ordered food deliveries, and personally funded reconstruction efforts. But history didn't care. Nero was already unpopular among the elite, and when a fire wipes out 2/3 of your capital, someone's got to take the blame. Rumors began spreading that Nero started the fire himself so he could rebuild Rome in his own image. Grander, more glorious, more Nero. To crush those rumors, Nero needed a scapegoat, and he chose the Christians, a small, unpopular religious sect at the time. He accused them of arson and unleashed brutal persecutions. So no, Nero didn't fiddle while Rome burned, he just fiddled the truth afterward. The fiddling story likely came centuries later, a perfect metaphor cooked up by writers who hated him. And let's be honest, it's too poetic for people to resist. In reality, Nero wasn't serenading the apocalypse. He was scrambling to save his empire's image and losing that PR war for the next 2,000 years. So no, Nero didn't fiddle while Rome burned, but he did get burned by history's best smear campaign. Number 2, Cleopatra was Egyptian, the queen who outsmarted history itself. When you picture Cleopatra, you probably imagine Egypt's most famous queen, a woman of mystery, draped in gold, ruling from the banks of the Nile. The last pharaoh of Egypt, the symbol of beauty, power, and seduction. Egyptian royalty in every sense, right? Not exactly. Here's the truth, Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian at all. She was Greek. She was part of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a royal family descended from Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals who took over Egypt after Alexander's death. That means Cleopatra's family ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years without being ethnically Egyptian. In fact, the Ptolemies were so Greek, they refused to even speak Egyptian. They built Greek temples, read Greek literature, and married their own siblings to keep their bloodline pure. So why does everyone think Cleopatra was Egyptian? Because she played the part better than anyone else ever had. She was the first of her dynasty to actually learn the Egyptian language. She embraced Egyptian religion, called herself the living goddess Isis, and mastered the art of public image centuries before Instagram. To her people, she wasn't Greek, she was Egypt. To the Romans, she was exotic and dangerous, a symbol of the East's seductive power. But when the Roman historians wrote their version of the story, they twisted it into a tale of lust and manipulation, reducing a multilingual, politically genius queen to a temptress who bewitched men. In reality, Cleopatra wasn't just beautiful. She was one of the most educated rulers in the ancient world. She spoke 9 languages, commanded armies, and nearly built an empire to rival Rome itself. But because her enemies wrote the history books, she became the villain, and her Greek roots were quietly rewritten as Egyptian myth. So no, Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian by blood, but she was smart enough to let the world believe it anyway. Number 1, the moon landing was faked. The lie that took off. One of the most famous modern lies in history, and one that just refuses to die, is the claim that the 1969 moon landing was faked. The story goes that NASA didn't actually send humans to the moon. Instead, they supposedly staged the whole thing inside a Hollywood studio, complete with props, lights, and camera tricks. The theory exploded during the Cold War, a time when the US and the Soviet Union were locked in a technological arms race to prove who ruled the skies. So when America announced, "We did it, we landed on the moon," some people didn't buy it. They pointed to the waving flag, claiming wind doesn't exist in space. They noticed missing stars in the background, and they swore the shadows looked off. Sounds suspicious, until you actually look at the science. The flag waved because it had a metal rod at the top, meant to make it look dramatic on camera. The missing stars? That's because the camera exposure was set for the bright lunar surface, too bright to capture faint starlight. And those weird shadows, they're just how sunlight behaves on a rough reflective surface. No movie magic, just physics. Still, conspiracy theorists kept asking, if it's real, where's the proof? Well, the proof is still up there. We've left reflectors on the moon's surface that scientists still use today to bounce lasers back to Earth. And that's not all. There are high-resolution satellite images of the Apollo landing sites that show tracks, equipment, and descent stages exactly where they should be. Plus, over 400,000 engineers, scientists, and technicians worked on the Apollo missions. That's one massive secret for 500,000 people to keep for 50 years straight. The truth is simple. We really did go. But the fact that millions believe we didn't says something deeper about human nature. We love drama more than data. We trust stories more than science. And we'll believe a good conspiracy if it's entertaining enough. The moon landing wasn't faked, but the lie that it was? Now that's the greatest Hollywood production of all time. Truth, lies, and great PR. From wooden horses to fake heroes, history has always been full of stories that sounded just believable enough to fool the world. Empires were built on lies. Legends were born from exaggeration. And sometimes all it took to rewrite reality was a confident storyteller and an audience willing to believe. But that's the strange beauty of truth. The deeper you dig, the weirder, the messier, and the more human it becomes. Every myth hides a motive. Every fact hides a flaw. And every generation discovers that their version of history was someone else's clever story. So the next time someone says, it's a fact of history, pause for a second, because it might just be a really old lie with excellent PR. After all, the truth never needed marketing. Lies always did. Remember to like and subscribe if you love stories like this.